Hello, Aguilitas. Sorry for not being able to attend the session, but being from Phoenix, Jalisco Jones cannot pass up the chance of seeing snow. That being said, I was still able to put together this presentation for you. So far, you have heard about how our leaders have been trailblazers, visionaries, innovators, but this session is all about the studious individuals. After Keith Little left the war, his box of underwear, where he hid the golden chancla, was shipped to one of the Allied forces' country, England. The box showed up one day to the home of a brilliant scientist, and the golden chancla now belonged to Rosalind Franklin. Rosalind Franklin was born in 1920. She was logical and precise. She decided to become a scientist when she was 15 years old. She passed the examination for admission to Cambridge University in 1938, and it sparked a family crisis. Her father disapproved of university education for women. He refused to pay. An aunt stepped in and said Franklin should go to school, and she would pay for it. Franklin's mother also took her side until her father finally gave in. She graduated in 1941 and started to work on her doctorate. Her work focused on wartime problems, the nature of coal and charcoal, and how to use them efficiently. She published 5 papers on the subject before she was 26 years old. Her work is still quoted today and helped launch the field of high-strength carbon fibers. At 26, Franklin had her PhD. She began working in X-ray diffraction, using X-rays to create images of crystallized solids. She pioneered the use of this method in analyzing complex, unorganized matter such as large biological molecules and not just single crystals. She was invited to King's College in London to join a team of scientists studying living cells. The leader of the team assigned her to work on DNA with a graduate student. Franklin's assumption was that it was her own project. The laboratory's second in command, Maurice Wilkins, was on vacation at the time, and when he returned, the relationship was muddled. He assumed she was to assist his work. She assumed she'd be the only one working on DNA. Franklin made marked advances in X-ray diffraction techniques with DNA. She adjusted her equipment to produce an extremely fine beam of X-rays. She extracted finer DNA fibers than ever before and arranged them in parallel bundles. And she studied the fibers' reaction to humid conditions. All of these allowed her to discover crucial keys to DNA structure. Wilkins shared her data, without her knowledge, with James Watson and Francis Crick at Cambridge University, ultimately publishing the proposed structure of DNA in March 1953. The strained relationship with Wilkins and other aspects of King's College led Franklin to seek another position. She headed her own research group at Birkbeck College in London, but the head of King's let her go on the condition she would not work on DNA. Franklin returned to her studies of coal and also wrapped up her DNA work. She turned her attention to viruses, publishing 17 papers in 5 years. Her group's findings laid the foundation for structural virology. While on a professional visit to the United States, Franklin had episodes of pain that she soon learned were ovarian cancer. She continued working over the next 2 years through 3 operations and experimental chemotherapy and a 10-month remission. She worked up until a few weeks before her death in 1958 at age 37. Before her death, though, Rosalind Franklin loved to take public transportation. On one of her many rides on a double-decker bus, she forgot the precious chancla. A dashing young man then found it. It is here that John McHale joins this team of giants. John McHale was born in 1922 in England. He was born in Glasgow and worked as a technician before the war, and then volunteered for military service and worked as a medical officer and sub-lieutenant for the Royal Marines. He was a member of the Independent Group, an alliance of artists and critics in London whose work and thinking are generally considered to anticipate pop art. There are several reasons why McHale has received less attention. The first is the multifaceted range of his activities. In John McHale, The Expandable Reader, a new collection of his writings, published by the Graduate School of Architecture, Planning, and Preservation at Columbia University, Alex Kitnick described McHale as artist, graphic designer, information theorist, architectural critic, sociologist, and futurist. This shows how dynamic this gentleman was, but also how studious he must have been to have knowledge on this emerging art form. He is known as the father of pop art, often known for his coining of the term. Michael's period as a public artist was brief, and his move to America in 1961 marked the end of this phase. But that did not stop him from continuing his education. He knew that great power comes with knowledge, so he continued to be studious in the U.S. In the U.S., he worked with and wrote about Buckminster Fuller, completed a PhD in sociology, published books such as The Future of the Future, became increasingly preoccupied with technical and ecological issues, and ran university research centers with his artist wife Magda Cordell Michael at the State University of New York and the University of Houston. In an essay titled The Plastic Parthenon, published in Dot Zero Number 3 in 1967, Michael writes, "The future of art seems no longer to lie with the creation of enduring masterworks, but with defining alternative cultural strategies through a series of communicative gestures in multimedia forms. As art and non-art become interchangeable, and the masterwork may only be a reel of punched or magnetized tape, the artist defines art less through an intrinsic value of art object than by furnishing new conceptualities of lifestyle and orientation." Through his studies, he was able to anticipate the art form of the future and better gauge the pulse of humanity. These two individuals may have had very different career paths, but they both understood that knowledge is power. They took their brief moment of spotlight and changed the world. Aguilitas, you too have the ability to attain this power, but you must embrace education and continue to learn.